19. Shoyo didn't have the energy to do anything except lie in bed and watch TV. That was getting old, so he grabbed his laptop and typed into the search bar, Tsukishima's wife, Grace Ferris, action movies, way too good looking. He lost interest almost immediately. So he typed in Tsukishima's divorce. Shit. Shoyo had no idea it had been such a big deal. The tabloids covered it for months. Paparazzi chased them both endlessly. Everyone had an opinion about who cheated on who. Gross. Shoyo grimaced when he read that there was speculation about Kei and their co-star, Bree Tennyson. No wonder Kei was so private now. Shoyo couldn't blame him. They'd been relentless, trying to get the real story. Or any story at all. Even if it was completely false. His phone beeped. Kei had dinner ready. The last thing Shoyo wanted to do was eat. But he pushed himself out of bed. He went into the main house wearing a big wool sweater with pajama bottoms and slippers. Sorry, I didn't have the strength to dress for dinner. That's okay, I didn't cook, which you should be grateful for. Kei had several takeout containers lined up on the kitchen island. He pointed at the first container. Thai coconut soup. I love this when I have a cold. Shoyo sat on a stool across the kitchen island from Kei. That would be fine. Nothing would taste good. He was doing this purely for Kei. Who was playing the doting nurse? No, you have to hear the other options. Kei placed his hand on the next container. Good old-fashioned chicken noodle soup. Tobio is sick too. He's not flying out here tomorrow. Thank God. Kei slowly blinked as he stared at Shoyo. Did you kiss him? What? Why is he sick too? Shoyo rolled his eyes. Look, I know you see Tobio as the devil incarnate and all. But it's really none of your business. Kei put his hand on the third container. Chicken pot pie. He kept his eyes down and waited for a reply. I'll have the coconut soup with a side of jealousy. Kei narrowed his eyes. He pushed the container across the island and pulled a spoon out of the drawer. He slid the spoon so hard it almost flew off the other end. But Shoyo caught it with both hands. Whoa. Kei grabbed a fork and the chicken pot pie. He went into the living room and turned on the television. Choosing Shoyo's old soap opera from the list of recordings. He turned the volume up and pointed at the TV. Oh look, it's your wife with her new husband and kid. Shoyo shuffled over and curled up in the corner of the sofa with his soup. Everything changes and yet somehow manages to stay exactly the same in the soap world. And the writers don't ever say to each other, let's be realistic? Kei sarcastically asked. And the men are all egotistical assholes. So you fit right in. Shoyo closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Yeah, I guess I did. Kei threw the remote on the table. Sometimes, you're like a caged animal, Shoyo. You bite the hand that feeds you. Were they going to fight again? Shoyo didn't have the energy. You're right. I'm sorry. I don't want that asshole in my house or anywhere near me. So you should move out. Shoyo looked up in surprise. Did he really just say that? Seriously? I told you. Tobio isn't coming here. And is this your thing? Every time you get angry or scared, you'll tell me to move out? Kei ignored Shoyo's question. He poked around the chicken pot pie with his fork and then stabbed it forcefully. He'll come here eventually. And I want nothing to do with it. Shoyo stood up and went back into the kitchen. Thank you for dinner. Kei followed him. You barely took one bite. You need to eat or you'll never get better. And that's not really an option since we start shooting again in 2 days. Shoyo put the container in the fridge. Maybe later. Right now, I'm tired. And I don't want to fight with you. Kei scoffed. You love fighting with me. Shoyo held on to the fridge door handle, keeping his back to Kei. I hurt you. With the jealousy comment. Or with mentioning Tobio. Or I don't even know what hurt you. I just know I don't want to do that anymore. Kei gently took Shoyo's arm. It's okay, please. Just come back to the sofa and sit with me. I'll spoon feed you some chicken pot pie. Will you change the fucking channel? Shoyo had no desire to see who had replaced him on the show that had been his life for so long. Kei took Shoyo by the hand and led him back to the sofa. He turned off the television and got a small bite of the chicken pot pie on his fork. You'll love this. It's made from scratch. Shoyo gave him a thumbs up as he chewed, trying to appear grateful. I know it's hard, seeing the people we love for who they really are. And I don't mean to demonize Tobio. But I can see the forest of trees better than you. Because I'm not invested. Shoyo was taken aback. Sure. Kei was being presumptuous. But Shoyo had grown accustomed to that. Not invested though? Was he really that detached? Because he sure as hell didn't act like it. You've never even met him. How could you poss? Kei fed him another bite, shutting him up. I'm sure he's a saint. He'd have to be, to put up with you. Shoyo finished chewing. Are you trying to start another fight? I'm trying to feed you. So open up. Shoyo took the bite and put up his hand. I can't eat any more. Kei held up another bite. Come on honey. A couple more bites. I'm not your honey. Thank God. I'm only here because. Kei gave up on feeding Shoyo and set the fork down. Yes. I know. You came rushing back from New York because we have a contract. I came back because I have 2 contracts now. One with you and one with the studio. And I'll be damned if I'll let Tobio mess with my career again. Or your heart? Shoyo stood up and went to the door. Don't worry. He'll never know where you live. Kei ran to the door and blocked Shoyo's way. That's not my only concern. Shoyo folded his arms, wanting to protect himself. I don't have the energy for this. You're looking for a fight. Or something. I don't know. I'm just confused right now. That's how we communicate. Kei threw his hands in the air. We're complete assholes to each other. But we're straightforward assholes who care about each other. Well, right now, in my current state, I need a little bit of love more than I need a whole lot of the cold hard truth. Shoyo waited a few painfully long seconds for Kei to say something. But he just stood there, dumbfounded. Yeah, I didn't think so. Shoyo took him by the shoulders and physically moved him out of the way so he could go back out to the guest house. And if you ever threaten to kick me out again, you better mean it, because I won't come back. He didn't wait for a reply. He went out to the guest house and fell back into bed. Later that evening, Kei took the chicken noodle soup to the guest house. He set the takeout container on the bedside table and crouched down. So he was eye level with Shoyo. Can we call a truce until you're feeling better? I'd hate to think I'm winning a war of words just because my opponent is weak. Shoyo opened his eyes. You're not winning. And I kissed him hello. That's it. Kei went to the other side of the bed and lay on his back, leaving plenty of room between them. Tell me about him. Shoyo rolled onto his back and stared at the ceiling. This couldn't possibly end well. But he took a deep breath. He's beautiful. So beautiful. I can't take my eyes off of him sometimes. Shoyo paused. What else? His family moved here from overseas when he was a teenager. Smart. Trilingual. He's still studying. Were you putting him through school? I was the reason his parents cut him off financially. So I insisted on helping him finish. But then, something changed. What? It wasn't easy to think about. Let alone talk about. Losing his parents' love and support changed Tobio. That's a pretty fucked up thing, you know? Having your parents take away something they're supposed to give unconditionally. It made him angry. And the fact that I wasn't out at work made him bitter. He thought I was ashamed of him. It all added up. Were you? Ashamed? I mean? Shoyo huffed. God no. If you saw a photo of him, you'd know that's not even possible. It was never about shame. It was about keeping my job. Keeping him in school. Keeping the money rolling in. I'd heard enough negative stuff. Homophobic stuff at work that I just wasn't sure how people would react. Sounds like you were willing to do anything to keep him happy. God, wasn't that the truth? Even as Tobio got more distant and bitter, Shoyo had fought like hell to keep him. And at the end, nothing he did was enough. I honestly don't know how he's getting by now. I have no idea who's supporting him. Maybe his parents took him back when he broke up with me. I didn't ask and he didn't offer any info on that front. But he looked good, happier, not so bitter. And now he wants you back? That seems pretty clear. Shoyo didn't want to talk about that. Yes. Now that he was working again. Tobio wanted him back. He didn't want to tell Kei how shitty that made him feel. He wants to meet you. He's a fan. I think I told you that in the beginning. He'd die if he knew that you're actually gay. Probably make advances or something. He's pretty forward when he wants something. You didn't answer my question. And I really don't want to meet the man who broke your heart. I didn't know you cared. Kei cared. Shoyo knew that. He could hear it in his voice when he'd called him in New York. That's why he'd come back so soon. If Kei needed him, he'd be here. He was still under contract. After all, that's bull and you know it. Shoyo turned and looked at Kei. Yeah, I guess the trifecta of comfort food says it all. Just be careful with Tobio. Okay? Don't jump in with both feet until you're sure. I already told you. I'm not doing anything until we've completed our mission. Kei blew air through his lips. What was our mission again? Shoyo huffed out a laugh. Faking love so you can find the real thing while keeping your career intact. God, it seems silly now, doesn't it? We can stop. Just pay me and I'll leave. Seeming stunned by the comment, Kei sat up. Their eyes met for a few seconds and then he got off the bed. Putting some distance between them. Just like that? Fulfill the terms of the contract. That's all I ask. Kei folded his arms. Give you an early termination bonus. Is that what you're referring to? Yep. Give me that and I'm gone. You know what, Shoyo? Kei raised his voice as he backed up toward the door. Fuck you. Shoyo squeezed his eyes shut. Why did he push Kei away when he needed him the most? All he really wanted was to stop this arguing. Roll over. And lie in Kei's arms all night. Kei? He sat up and looked around. But Kei was gone. Fuck. He fell back on the bed and threw his arm over his eyes. 20. It was getting worse. They couldn't even talk to each other without fighting. Twice now. Kei had told Shoyo to move out. Maybe he really should. They had to work together. And even though they were both great at shutting everything else out when the director yelled action, they didn't need the entire cast and crew witnessing this tension between them. Shoyo rolled over and stared at the suitcase that he'd yet to unpack. He'd woken up feeling slightly better. But the thought of finding another place to live felt overwhelming. He regretted practically everything he'd said the night before. Of course, this wasn't exactly new territory for him. Being hurt about one thing and communicating about it by being a monumental asshole about something else was pretty much par for the course. From the corner of his eye, he saw the message on his phone. He instantly, and idiotically, hoped it was a message from Kei. Not that he could think of even one good reason why Kei might have texted him. Apart from a friendly, "Get the fuck out of my guest house." His heart sank when he saw it was from Tobio. It was a photo of a dreary New York day with the words, "Wish you were here." He'd have loved that message on almost any other day. But today, he couldn't shake the feeling he'd thrown something important away. He stood up and started stripping his pajamas off on the way to the shower. Afterward, with his pride tucked firmly into his pocket, Shoyo went to the main house. Ready to apologize for his careless words. Ready to do and say whatever it took to make it right. Honesty. Total honesty. He kept repeating in his head. When he opened the sliding glass door, he was shocked to find a complete stranger in Kei's kitchen. The woman dried her hands on a towel and rushed over to Shoyo. "There he is," she said as she opened her arms and pulled Shoyo in for a hug. "How are you, dear? I hear you've had the flu." Much better today," Shoyo answered tentatively. "Just a little weak still. Forgive me, but, oh, I'm so excited to meet you. I'm afraid I've completely forgotten my manners. I'm Margaret Tsukihina, and I've been watching you your whole life." Kei's mother was one of those rare, ageless creatures. She could be 45 or 60, depending on who you asked. Her secret wasn't surgery, although that was common in her social circle. It had more to do with the way she carried herself. Like a woman who expected to be treated a certain way. Like a woman who was in complete control. It didn't hurt that her wardrobe was almost entirely bespoke. Suffice it to say, Margaret was not the typical soap fan Shoyo usually encountered. He couldn't imagine her wearing a sweatshirt with an iron-on photo of her favorite cat on it. A memorial. Of course. Okay. They weren't all like that. Only one in particular that managed to corner Shoyo as he left the studio. Most of his fans were sweet and ardent and had strong opinions about the show. He appreciated every one of them. Even the cat lady. It's such a pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Tsukihina. Margaret patted Shoyo's cheek. Of course. You're still a little weak, dear. The flu can take it right out of you. That's why I'm making breakfast. Kei said you haven't eaten much. Shoyo nodded as he backed away, trying to regain some of his personal space. Okay, let me just go talk to Kei for a second and I'll be right back. Margaret followed Shoyo to the stairs. I watched you grow up on TV. It was so wonderful to see how you emerged from that gawky stage with the braces and those few extra pounds. Such a vulnerable time. You know, what with the acne and becoming a man. Wow, Shoyo said with a laugh. That's quite a picture you're painting. Oh, honey, you got through it like a star. I remember wishing Kei could have seen you when he was that age. But he's a few years older than you are. Of course. Shoyo smiled politely and motioned with his thumb as he took a few steps up. Let me just, of course. Dear, we'll talk later. I have a lot to say about that wife of yours. Margaret gave him a conspiratorial wink. Shoyo smiled politely again and made his way upstairs. He went into Kei's room and shut the door behind him. Kei? He walked into the bathroom and found Kei sitting on a bench in his dressing room. Hunched over. When Kei looked up, Shoyo could see tears in his eyes. Oh God, what's wrong? Kei pointed to a manila folder sitting on the bathroom counter. I signed the early termination. So just go. The final payment will be. Kei couldn't finish. He broke down and put his face in his hands. Kei. Shoyo knelt on the floor in front of him, gently placing his hands on Kei's knees. I'm sorry about last night. Will you let me explain? I think it's pretty clear. It's not. None of this is clear. It's all a muddled mess. But I guess if I'm being honest, I'm still a little pissed off about what you said about me getting too cozy. Kei wiped his eyes and looked at him, waiting for him to continue. Okay, I'm a lot pissed. It hurt. And then you wouldn't stop talking about Tobio. Between that and how sick I felt, I just morphed into a complete asshole? Kei helped him out. I was going to say I reacted badly. But yeah, yours is more accurate. Shoyo looked away for a second, trying to summon the courage to be really honest. I'm sorry, he said, making eye contact again. Leaving you, moving out, calling everything off, is absolutely not what I want. Are you sure about that? Kei bit his lip, trying to keep it from quivering. Because my mother showed up this morning without any warning. I know. She just mentioned what a gawky teenager I was. Let me guess. Kei said with a huff. She managed to make it sound like some sort of backhanded compliment. Shoyo tilted his head. Come to think of it. She kind of did. That's Margaret. Kei shook his head. I can't believe she just showed up like this. Shoyo resisted the urge to reach out and push Kei's hair behind his ear. She's been worried about you. You couldn't keep her away forever. Kei wiped his eyes and immediately broke down again. You don't know how scary this whole coming out thing is for me. And that woman, my mother, will not be happy about it. Look at it this way. Shoyo said reassuringly. When she finds out you're gay, you can tell her it's because of something she did. That's not funny. It's kind of funny. Shoyo didn't stop himself this time. He reached out and held Kei's face, gently wiping away his tears with his thumbs. I'm not going anywhere, and you don't have to come out to your mother right now. In fact, don't. Let her watch the show like everyone else and do it on your own terms. Okay? Shoyo kissed Kei's forehead and wrapped his arms around him. Let Dr. Cartwright deal with Mrs. Margaret Tsukihina. Kei returned the hug, resting his chin on Shoyo's shoulder. He held on tight, trying to get control of his emotions. Then he pulled back just enough so he could look Shoyo in the eye. This isn't just a business arrangement anymore. Shoyo's eyes widened as he wiped more tears from Kei's cheeks. No shit? Does that mean we're friends? Would you please take me seriously for a second? Shoyo got up off the floor and sat next to Kei. Okay. Kei wiped his nose with a tissue that had stopped being useful. Shoyo grabbed the box off the counter and gave him another one. He sat closer this time, and wrapped an arm around Kei's waist. When my mom showed up, I actually considered begging you to stay. And by beg, I mean bribe. That's how hard it is for me to have her in my home. But what I really wanted was just to be able to ask you, as a friend, to be here for me and not get on the Kei-bashing bandwagon with her. She has a band? Well, I have a Kei-as awesome trumpet. So we'll see who's louder. Kei leaned on him and let their heads touch. Thank you. You owe me. Shoyo joked. He quickly added, just kidding. Is your mom a good cook? Because she made breakfast and expects me to eat it. He turned and kissed Kei's temple, breathing in his scent. He'd missed that scent. He'd missed being this close to Kei. They didn't have reason to be this close anymore, now that the cast had been removed. My mother's good at everything. It's part of her fucking charm. Kei put his hand on Shoyo's knee. You're lucky you're sick. Because these awful pajamas would not fly with her on any other day. Does she not like Hello Kitty? Shoyo didn't want to let go. In fact, he wrapped his other arm around Kei, locking him in an embrace. I guess I know exactly what I'm getting you for Christmas. You smell better, like yourself again. What did I smell like before? Like you'd been on a plane and hadn't showered in several days. Ha, should we talk about how you smelled after the hospital? Kei chuckled. No. Should we talk about how many times I wiped your... Kei slammed his hand over Shoyo's mouth. My mother must never know about that. Shoyo nodded, the hand still covering his mouth. Swear it, Kei said in all seriousness. He slowly removed his hand. Shoyo offered his pinky finger. Pinky swears. Kei smirked and wrapped his pinky finger around Shoyo's. Pinky swears. Shoyo motioned with his head. How about you throw that envelope away? Kei got up and pulled the contract out of the envelope. He tore it into several pieces and tossed it in the trash can. They left the bathroom together and Shoyo slapped Kei on the butt as they walked to the door. Does your mom being here mean you're not going to get in the hot tub naked anymore? Or, does it mean she'll be joining you naked in the hot tub? Because my head might explode from all that womanliness. You're disgusting. Hey, she has a great figure for her age. Kei shrugged. Pilates. Ha, maybe I should look into that. Your body is just fine. Fine as in, just fine? Or fine as in, damn, you're lookin' fine. They got to the stairs and Kei turned to Shoyo. Fishing for a compliment? Shoyo looked down at himself. I guess Hello Kitty pajamas are kind of like a drab, dull, beige sling. Kei rolled his eyes and leaned in, lowering his voice. Yes, you're still fuckable, but we're never, ever, not in a million years. Shoyo stopped when he saw Margaret looking up at them. Are you two ready for breakfast? Kei motioned for Shoyo to go first. After you. So, you're on my son's show now. I have to say, you've done a marvelous job so far. Shoyo watched Margaret take an extremely graceful bite of her omelette. He'd never questioned his own table etiquette until this very moment. He set his own fork down and rested his hands in his lap, not wanting to eat while the woman's eyes were on him. Thank you, Mrs. Tsukihina. It was just a small role at first. But we recently found out they want to extend my contract. Well, that doesn't surprise me at all. Margaret pointed with her fork at Shoyo's plate. Eat, dear. She turned her attention to Kei. He'll turn your show around. Honey, mark my words. My show didn't need turning around. It just needed. It was getting a little stale. Of course. The soaps never let that happen. They're always throwing something new at us. Margaret said with a wink directed at Shoyo. Kei rolled his eyes. Yeah, maybe we should give Shoyo's character a multiple personality disorder. Or better yet, how about an immaculate conception? Margaret chuckled. Don't be ridiculous. She set her fork down and tapped her finger on her chin while she considered the idea. But there does need to be a twist. He's gay. Shoyo picked up his fork and took a bite while they stared at him in shock. Kei's mouth literally hanging open. Who is, dear? Kei shot Shoyo a glare. That's top secret information, mother. You can't tell anyone. How can I tell anyone when I have no idea who you're talking about? It's me. I'm gay. The producers on Light of Day fired me when I came out of the closet. Shoyo gave Kei an apologetic look. Margaret furrowed her brow. Well, that was certainly their loss. I've never known a finer actor than you. Shoyo was stunned. Did Kei's own mother really just say that? Kei threw his napkin on the table and was about to stand up when Shoyo grabbed his hand. If Margaret could have seen under the table, he'd have witnessed Shoyo gently caressing Kei's fingers, trying to console him. Your son, Mrs. Tsukihina, is the finest actor I've ever had the pleasure to work with. He's highly respected on the set and loved by everyone. And just being in his presence and watching him work is an honor for me. Shoyo tried to pull his hand away, but Kei kept hold of it. He gave Shoyo a smile and intertwined their fingers. Thank you. He took a deep breath and turned his attention back to his mother. On the show, Leo and Colin are going to fall in love. And one might say that life has imitated art. Margaret set her fork down. Are you sure that's the best thing for your show? Leo has never shown any signs of. He's only been with women. She turned her attention to Shoyo. Please don't take this the wrong way. Honey, I have no problem with gay people. Unless they're your son. Kei muttered. Don't put words in my mouth. Dear, I'm just not sure people will believe that Leo is. She looked at Shoyo again. Of course. If Leo Hardin met Dr. Brandon Cartwright, he'd be very impressed. Wouldn't he? Margaret's face lit up like she'd just had a huge revelation. Wouldn't that be something? Shoyo lowered his gaze and pursed his lips together, trying to hold back a chuckle. He quickly sobered up when Kei let go of his hand and covered his eyes. I can't do this. Kei whispered. Kei started shaking as the sobs worked their way up. Shoyo immediately wrapped his arms around Kei. Shish. It's okay. He stroked Kei's hair and whispered in his ear. I've got you. I'm not going anywhere. Margaret sat there, watching. Honey, she said, getting no reply. It took him a moment. But then she said, oh my God, you had me so confused. But I think I understand now. Shoyo took the napkin off his lap and offered it to Kei as he lifted his head. Meeting his mother's gaze. You do? Margaret sighed. You were afraid to tell me? Why, Kei? I'm your mother. Why am I always the last to know anything? And how could you keep the fact that you're dating Shoyo Hinata from me? You know what a huge fan I am. Margaret got up and rounded the table. She leaned down between them and kissed Kei's cheek and then Shoyo's. Maybe I'll get a grandchild. Stop gloating. I'm not gloating. Kei plopped into a chair. You're gloating so loud they can hear it in fucking Cincinnati. Shoyo poured Kei a glass of wine from the bottle he'd just opened. I'm just out here enjoying your awesome backyard. And lower your voice. You don't want your mother to hear you swear like a sailor. She'll think I'm a bad influence on you. You are. But my mother would never believe it. She thinks you walk on water. Shoyo pushed the glass across the table. Are you really going to let your mother's love and admiration for my incredible acting skills keep you from enjoying the fact that you just came out to her and she still loves you? For now, she loves me. But what happens when I break up with the god of daytime soaps? I'll just be a disappointment to her again. Shoyo quietly studied Kei for a moment. What? Kei asked incredulously. You don't want to hear it. Are you psychoanalyzing me? Don't analyze me, Kei said with a slow shake of his head. Shoyo put his hands up in defense. Okay, and I'm really not gloating. I'm just relieved Margaret took it all so well. And if my being there made a difference, then I'm very glad I could help. Good. I don't want to fight today. Kei put his sunglasses on and leaned back in his chair, letting the sun hit his face. And thank you for those nice things you said. And right back atcha. Shoyo lifted his glass and smiled. Here's to the two best actors in Hollywood. 21. The two best actors in Hollywood had been hard at work for months, spending virtually all of their time together. It was the same thing every day. Shoyo would make the coffee, fill their travel mugs, and grab something to eat in the car. They'd work all day, often into the night, then fall into bed, and repeat it all over again the next day. It was a rigorous schedule and Shoyo loved every second of it. He was starting to believe what Kei had said about never struggling to find work again. Did the coffee taste different this morning? I'm not sure I got the ratio right. Shoyo stood next to Kei. It's a new blend I'm trying. I didn't notice anything different. Kei adjusted the sling over his fake cast. Has it always been your dream to be a barista? Or just since you moved in with me? How about I fill your mug with coffee from the Mr. Coffee in the guest house tomorrow morning? Kei snorted. I'm really not a coffee snob. Quiet on the set. Shoyo leaned in and whispered. Yeah, I noticed you're all over that canned shit at craft services. Are you fishing for coffee compliments? The director cleared his throat. Guys, never mind. Roll sound. Rolling. Mark. Set. And action. Colin got off the elevator in the parking garage. Walking just behind Leo, their satchels had been replaced with a rolling briefcase. Are we going to talk about what just happened? Leo kept walking. Not here, Leo. Colin's voice echoed through the parking garage. They both stopped and Leo turned around. Do not shout at me. He thought I was your assistant. That he could just boss me around. Make a copy of this. Fetch me that file. You are my assistant. And it didn't kill you to fetch that file. You're still alive to tell the sorry tale. You let him disrespect me. You didn't even tell him I'm second chair. You let him. Colin pushed past Leo. Never mind. If you don't get how insulting that was, then I certainly can't explain it to you. Leo grabbed Colin's hand. Wait. He stepped closer, keeping hold of his hand. Colin looked down at their joined hands and then met Leo's gaze. If I'm not shouting to the world who my assistant really is, it's because I don't want to let them see. Leo's eyes fell to Colin's lips. He corrected himself and let go of Colin's hand, taking a step back and lifting his chin. You're right. I set the standard, and I apologize for letting him treat you that way. If you don't say something, I know, they'll think it's fine to treat all interns or assistants that way. Leo glanced at his feet and then met Colin's intense gaze again. You shouldn't have to go through what I've already been through. I'll have your back. Colin nodded. Okay, are we off the clock? Leo looked at his watch. As of 3 minutes ago. Can I take you to dinner? My treat? Leo smiled. Having your back gets me dinner? No. Colin shook his head. That gets you my respect. Dinner is just. Neither of us having to eat alone tonight. I'd love to, but I get to buy the bottle of wine. You can't afford my taste. Leo gave him a wink as he backed away. Not yet. Anyway, cut. That's it for tonight, everyone. See you tomorrow. Shoyo handed his briefcase off to an assistant. Any interest in sushi tonight? I found a takeout with excellent reviews. Sounds great. Kei grinned as he backed away. Oh, and your coffee is stellar. I knew it. And you are a coffee snob. Just admit it. Kei shrugged. Just another way you've spoiled me. If you only knew all the ways I could spoil you. If there weren't a bunch of people milling around them. Shoyo would have said it out loud. Just so he could watch Kei turn 20 different shades of red. The next morning, Kei moved close to Shoyo as they set up to do a second take. Okay, everybody, back to ones. As they moved back to their starting positions, Kei whispered to Shoyo. Bree doesn't look pleased with the script. Pissed is more like it. But that's no excuse to blow the scene. Right? Because she wanted a romantic arc with Colin? What is she, 12? God, she's as bad as her character. And, action. Your Honor, could you please ask counsel to stop canoodling in the courtroom? The judge looked over his reading glasses. I believe that's called conferring counselor. Take your time, fellas. Colin glared at the DA and turned back to Leo. He gave him a final nod and Leo stood up. Your Honor, we're ready to proceed when you are. Cut. Let's move on. And action. Colin caught up to the DA in the hallway. What the hell was that? Jane Dent looked pleased with herself. You tell me. I mean, since when did you and your boss get so chummy? I thought you hated him as much as I do. He pushed the down button on the elevator. Is this because I refused to go out with you? Colin pushed the button a few more times. That was before I found out you bat for the other team. I still have a tough time believing it. Though it doesn't surprise me one bit that Leo does. He doesn't. And what the hell is that supposed to mean anyway? Jane chuckled. He hates women. Or are you so enamored with him that you can't see anything past those fancy suits? It's just you he hates, Jane. And apparently, it's you who can't get past the fancy suits. Let me guess. You asked him out and he refused, and now, every time he beats your ass in court, all you can think about is proving to him how better you are. Because that's what people like you think about when you've been outplayed. Isn't it, Colin? Colin turned around and found Leo standing behind him. Well, I'm dying to know what else you think about Ms. Dent. The courthouse probably isn't the right venue. The elevator door opened and Leo kept it open with his hand. This one is all yours. Ms. Dent. When the elevator doors closed, Colin lowered his gaze. I'm sorry, that was. Don't be. They turned and walked toward the stairwell. I'm so proud of you. I can barely breathe right now. Cut. That's a wrap. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy your Christmas break. Shoyo took off Colin's black glasses and walked off the set with Kay. I'm starving. What time is your flight? You're going to miss me, aren't you? Kay took off the fake cast and handed it to a wardrobe assistant. I'll be too busy wrangling my mother and her twin sister. Ah, Aunt Betty. And when do I get to meet Aunt Betty? Come to Aspen with me. We'd have so much fun. See? Shoyo wagged his finger at Kay. You will miss me. Kay kicked off Leo's dress shoes and slipped into his flip-flops. You're so arrogant. Shoyo shrugged. Maybe I just want you to say it first. Come to Aspen. I can't. Even if I wanted to. Shoyo dropped his gaze. You want to. Look at me. You want to. I can't miss Christmas with my dad. Kay sighed. I know. So, what time is your flight? Late. 11:35. I was just going to get a cab from here. Do you mind driving the Range Rover home? Don't be ridiculous. I'll drive you. You don't have to do that. Don't make it a big deal. I'm just driving a friend to the airport. People do it all the time. Shoyo grinned. I'm going to miss you too. I didn't say it. You didn't have to. Kay opened his trailer door, letting Shoyo go in first. They stripped out of their work clothes and put on jeans. Shoyo threw on a thick sweater so he'd be warm on the plane. You're in first, right? Kay ran his hands through his hair. And put on a baseball cap. Domestic first is total trash. But at least you'll be able to sleep without people sneaking selfies on the way to the bathroom. Yes. Snobby pants. I'm in first. Shoyo glanced at him and smiled as he looked away. Am I ever going to get my Yankees cap back? Buy yourself another one while you're in New York. Kay adjusted it on his head. I like this one. Kay could see the United Airlines sign up ahead. He made his way to the drop-off area a bit more slowly than he needed to. Shoyo turned in his seat. Promise me you'll be careful in Aspen. No more broken bones. I can't stomach the thought of taking care of your sorry ass again. Kay laughed. Yeah, it'd be fun to see how they'd write in a broken leg for Leo. Could you imagine Colin's reaction? He'd be all, are you fucking kidding me with this shit? Either that or he'd just kill his boss. Kay pulled up to the curb. Okay, get ready to jump out. You'll have about 5 seconds. Shoyo unbuckled his seatbelt. Speaking of broken legs, he sat up in his seat. This is the best goddamned send-off I've ever had. So touching. So caring. Kay reached over and patted his leg. Does that help? No. Get your hand off of me. Shoyo pointed to the people in the car in front of them. You're like that guy. He's patting his wife's leg too. What a chump. He's never gonna get laid. Kay raised his eyebrows and smiled. Say hi to your dad for me. No, actually. Give him a hug for me. Oh, he gets a hug? Look at this guy. He's sitting in his car while his wife. Okay, we're here. Fine. Shoyo got out and opened the back door. He grabbed his carry-on and paused long enough to look at Kay. Give Margaret a hug for me. He slammed the door before Kay could reply. 22. Shoyo was 5 minutes out. 8 if the driver continued to go the damn speed limit. 4 days they'd been apart for the Christmas break. 4 hideously long days. It had been a sobering experience for Shoyo. He missed Kei more than he could have imagined. He tried to stay in the moment with his dad, doing the things they usually did together, breakfast at his favorite diner, shopping for new shirts and ties, even though he insisted that his old ones were still fine, browsing bookstores and vintage record stores. It was nice, but something was missing, or someone. Kei had arrived back home from Aspen a few hours earlier. He'd texted Shoyo, telling him how excited he was to exchange presents later that night. Shoyo couldn't wait to see him again. "It's the big gate on the left," he told the driver. "Just push the button and tell him it's Shoyo." The driver followed the instructions and the gate opened. "Oh God," Shoyo said under his breath. A huge smile plastered on his face. Kei was standing on the porch, looking like Sex and Christmas in his red alpine sweater, black fitted pants, and black leather boots, like an ad for J. Crew or something. Damn. Shoyo jumped out of the car. He took a good long look at Kei, grinning from ear to ear while the driver unloaded his luggage. Kei waited for the driver to get back in the car before he stepped off the porch. "How was New York? How was Aspen?" "Don't change the subject." Kei stood right in front of Shoyo and took hold of the sleeve of his chunky winter sweater with 2 fingers. "You went shopping without me. I did lots of things without you. Hated every second of it." "Yeah, me too." Kei let go of the sleeve and tucked his hands in his pockets. "Sitting by the fire with my mom and my Aunt Betty going on and on about how Shoyo Hanada is doing so great on my show almost killed me. Being away from you almost killed me. I bet." They both grinned. "So, are you going to hug me or what?" Kei stepped closer. He wrapped his arms around Shoyo's waist and kissed his cheek. "Welcome home." Shoyo's eyes shuttered closed as he breathed Kei in. He smelled different. Maybe he'd bought a new cologne. He was about to mention it when his ears perked up. "Is that Christmas music?" Kei picked up the suitcase and took Shoyo's hand, leading him into the house. "Since we still have presents to open, I thought I'd set the mood." He'd done more than set the mood with music. Candles were lit. There was a spread of hors d'oeuvres laid out on the coffee table, along with a bottle of champagne and caviar. Shoyo swallowed hard. "This looks incredible. Just give me a minute to freshen up from the flight." He rolled his suitcase into the guest house and shut the door. He stared back at the house, wondering how the hell he'd get through this night without kissing Kei. It wasn't fair. The extremely romantic atmosphere he'd created. And after missing him like crazy? Shoyo was screwed. It wasn't the champagne that did Shoyo in. It wasn't hearing that addictive laughter, or being hand-fed caviar on a tiny mother-of-pearl spoon while Kei stared at his lips with those killer blue eyes. It wasn't Kei laying his head on Shoyo's shoulder while he sang along with Karen Carpenter. And who knew Kei was an alto? It wasn't when the Christmas music changed to regular music. But not just any regular music. A specific song that curiously made Kei's eyes light up, which he quickly tried to hide by grabbing the remote and fast-forwarding. It didn't matter. Shoyo already knew what song it was. He chuckled a little. None of those moments broke Shoyo. He didn't let it slip that he had to force himself not to text Kei every 5 minutes while he was in New York. Not even after his 3rd glass of champagne. He could have. But he didn't. He didn't lean in and lick the caviar off Kei's bottom lip when it was so obviously sitting there for that very reason. He desperately wanted to, but he didn't. He didn't tell Kei that his singing voice sounded like heaven. If heaven had a sound. And Shoyo was suddenly sure it did. And he didn't jump up and grab Kei's hand before he could fast-forward the song and say, "Let's dance." Shoyo had been strong, stoic, a rock. Until now. "What's this?" "Your Christmas present, silly." Shoyo pulled the white ribbon on the large flat Tiffany blue box. He took off the lid and pushed the tissue paper aside. His hand found Kei's. "Your dad said you probably haven't seen this one in a long time." Kei squeezed Shoyo's hand. "I was so touched by the gift you gave him. I wanted to do the same for you. Shoyo bit his lip as he ran his finger over the beautiful silver frame that housed a photo of him and his mother. Shoyo couldn't have been more than 3 or 4 when the photo was taken. They were on a beach. Daria holding on tight to her little boy in his blue bathing suit with yellow ducks. Shoyo couldn't remember ever seeing this particular photo before. He kissed his finger and touched his mother's face as a tear rolled down his cheek. The nail is already in the wall in the guest house. I took the liberty. Shoyo didn't have words. Kei looked worried. Shoyo still didn't have words. What could he possibly say? Thank you wasn't enough. I love you was too much. He cupped Kei's cheek, leaned in, and gave him the softest of kisses. The edge of his lips barely grazing Kei's. It wasn't a kiss motivated by passion or desire. It was a kiss of gratitude and understanding. Shoyo barely realized he'd done it. He turned his attention back to the photo. He could feel Kei's eyes boring into his. But he couldn't look at him. And he still couldn't talk. They sat in silence until Shoyo could pull himself together enough to say something. Something that wouldn't scare the shit out of Kei and make him say something stupid like you should move out. He put the lid back on the box and stood up, putting his hand out for Kei. Your present is in the guest house. Shoyo hung the photo on the wall and stepped back. Kei had chosen the perfect spot. He'd be able to look at the photo before he fell asleep at night and when he woke up in the morning. It was the perfect gift. He took a deep breath and tried to lighten the moment. Close your eyes. He looked at Kei. I mean it. Close your eyes. Okay, closed. Kei put his hands over his eyes. Shoyo wheeled Kei's gift out of the closet. Okay, open them. A mountain bike? Kei got a little closer. A very nice mountain bike. It's not for you. I mean, unless you want to upgrade. Kei shook his head. I don't understand. Shoyo was glad the mountain bike was in between them. He put one hand on the seat and the other on the handlebar to steady himself. I know you're going to want to get on your bike again soon. And I'll be worried sick. Thinking about you out there all alone. Unless I'm out there, wherever, with you. But, Kei's mouth hung open. Shoyo reached across the bike and put his finger under Kei's chin. Closing it. I guess we both left each other speechless. You'd really ride with me? Kei's expression was one of complete shock. Shoyo looked at the photo on the wall. I love you. Yeah, I'll really ride with you. A small, disbelieving laugh escaped Kei's mouth. That's love? A miracle. I know. Shoyo didn't want to come around from the bike. He was hanging onto it for dear life. But Kei tugged on his arm and pulled him into a hug. We're going to have so much fun. I swear. You'll love it. Not until you're fully healed. This is for later, okay? Kei stepped back and tucked his hands into his back pockets. A look on his face Shoyo couldn't quite read. He took another step back, putting more space between them. In my whole life, I've never had. Shoyo knew what he was trying to say. He'd never had a friend who cared this much. It wasn't easy being as famous as Kei was. Always wondering what people's motives were for wanting to get close to him. He'd even seen it at work. People in the industry, falling over themselves to get Kei's attention. Shoyo looked at the photo hanging on the wall. It was quite possibly the sweetest gift he'd ever been given. Tobio's gifts to him over the years hadn't even come close. He looked at Kei again. Standing there with his eyes on the ground and probably a lump in his throat. Not able to say the words. Shoyo knew the feeling. I know. Kei looked up and gave him a grateful smile. Merry Christmas Sho. Shoyo took hold of the bike. Let's get this in the garage. Kei followed behind him. You know we're going to have to get you some riding clothes. And a helmet. Can't I just wear my yoga pants or something? Kei scoffed. No. You have to wear the proper gear. It's safer that way. It didn't save your sorry ass. Don't fight me on this. You'll lose. Shoyo smiled to himself. The little thank you kiss hadn't ruined everything. Thank God.